Welcome to Shannons Club TV, where we revisit the legacy of significant cars in Australia. In each episode, we offer a fresh perspective on our feature car in an Australian context, on the road and in competition.
Now, coming up, we'll take a road trip with a proud owner and we get the latest market news from the Shannons auctions team. Right now though, the groundbreaking Japanese car that offered premium engineering at a bargain price, the Datsun 1600.
When the Datsun 1600 arrived locally in 1968, it was inconceivable the Japanese could offer a cheap small car that shadowed a BMW in every key mechanical specification. Experts across the world concluded it had to be a copy of a BMW. It wasn't. It was also much cheaper, and for most owners, it was better. As long as it could be dismissed as a copy, the global car industry didn't have to face the real threat the Datsun 1600 represented. Within 3 years, some big names would be closing or consolidating their facilities to survive. Even in Australia, the Datsun 1600 arrival coincided with the end of local VW Beetle manufacture. The Datsun 1600 didn't just take over local showrooms, it had an even bigger impact on local motorsport. Mark, it's hard to imagine a more effective four-cylinder specification straight out of the box at base level.
Yeah, and it was just effective in motorsport from the moment it started competing. I mean, you look at the basic package, a single overhead cam four-cylinder engine, just under 100 brake horsepower. The car only weighed just over 900 kilos. Then you had front disc brakes, you had this fantastic independent suspension. I mean, this car was just as effective on the circuit as it was in rallying, so it's no surprise that it was enormously popular.
If you were producing a homologation special of a Cortina or something like that, that's what you'd do.
That was it was the perfect car.
Exactly. So most missed the devastatingly effective merger of the adventurous Prince Motor Company into the staid Nissan corporate structure 2 years earlier. Prince brought proven overhead camshaft technology already ahead of its Mercedes-Benz origins. Prince and Nissan collaboration quickly delivered a powerful new single overhead cam inline 4 that owed nothing to BMW or Mercedes-Benz. It was more reliable and had huge reserves, as motorsport contenders would soon discover. The Datsun 1600's fully independent rear suspension was not a big step for a team already responsible for Japan's first ED-on rear end in the Prince Gloria. Nissan's invigorated design team had the skills to merge Prince's Michelotti and Nissan's Pininfarina design signatures. The Datsun 1600's confident international look owed nothing to BMW or any other Western model. Nissan's overseas marketing team, unusually for Japanese staff, made a point of asking their global customers what they wanted next. Their responses, including Australia's call for a bigger cabin, were taken seriously. This new approach was so effective, the Datsun 1600 would soon be built in Australia before Nissan took over the entire local VW plant. Mark, it was amazing how fast this transition occurred. Yet several switched-on Aussies took the motorsport component to another level again.
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, the local distributors, the local Datsun dealers, they could really see the potential in this car. And it was never better demonstrated than at Mount Panorama Bathurst. During the late 1960s and early 70s, the Datsun 1600, or 510 as it was known in other markets, proved its great versatility in competition, with major successes on bitumen and gravel. Outright victory in the 1970 East African Safari and, closer to home, the Ampol Trial showed that Nissan's lightweight but rugged chassis and drivetrain, combined with long travel independent suspension, was as close to a perfect rally car that you could ask for. On bitumen, it also dominated the 2.5 litre division in the US Trans Am series and had a mortgage on its class in the Hardy Ferodo 500 at Bathurst. In Australia, there has been no other car as consistently successful at grassroots level, winning everything from club rallies, circuit sprints and motorcarners, right up to state rally championships over several decades. Joe, the fact that the Datsun 1600 also won the 1982 Australian Rally Championship, that was a decade after it left the showrooms, proves how far ahead of its time this car really was when it was released in the 1960s.
Yeah, I think it was just greeted with disbelief and hope, perhaps, that all that complexity, as people would have seen it at the time, was all going to fall apart. And we'd all live happily ever after and go back to doing what we were doing. But it didn't. It just went from strength to strength, and I think that disbelief turned into shock. And the only thing that saved the local industry was that Datsun had very strict quota on how many they could sell. Otherwise it would have been all over Red Rover. Just amazing. And it was also carrying full import duty too. So it could have been another $500 cheaper again.
And that was at a time when people were thinking, oh, all the Japanese do is just copy existing designs, but this was really ahead of its time.
Not just copy existing designs, but have to bribe you with extras like radio and heater and that sort of thing. This car didn't have to bribe you at all. It was just fantastic, whether it had a heater or a radio or nothing. It was just a great car.
Yeah, it was a real game changer, wasn't it? The 1600's arrival could not have been better timed for Datsun, as success in the annual 500-mile race for production cars at Bathurst was becoming an effective marketing tool for car manufacturers. Its first appearance in 1968 delivered an emphatic victory, claiming first, second and third in Class B, which up until then had been dominated by BMC's mighty Mini Cooper. In 1969, the Datsun 1600 claimed the top 5 places. 2 more victories in the following 2 years made it 4 wins from 4 starts. Such crushing superiority did wonders for its reputation and showroom sales. By 1972, the Datsun 1600 Bathurst era was over, but its second life as a hugely popular clubman's competition car was only just beginning.
And remember to join the Shannons Club, where you can connect with other enthusiasts around the country.
Hi, this is Phil with my Datsun 1600, automatic, 1972 model in showroom condition, and is one of the first of the automatics that Nissan released in the P510 range. Datsuns for the year were a long way in front of their opposition. The Datsun 1600 was one of the first cars to come out with McPherson strut front end, independent rear suspension, alloy head, overhead camshaft, and was a class leader in its day. When you look at some of the cars it was up against, had beam axles, double wishbone front ends and heavy 6 cylinders. These were a very light, nimble car with rugged suspension. Datsun 1600s have been part of the rally scene since 1968 on the world scene. I rallied them from 1981 through to 1990 in Victoria, in the Victorian Rally Championships, when there was a lot of competitiveness and a lot of variety of cars. A very successfully campaigned motor car of its era. Datsun 1600s to me have a lot of character going forward and a very easy car to modify for both racing and rallying. So their pedigree puts them in a different category. From standard you can go to whatever field you want. They've been very famous in both racing and rallying over the years with South African rallies, and even Paul Newman drove one. They have done a lot of heritage all around the world.
Well, Tiny Hanson from the Shannons Auctions team joins us. Welcome, Tiny.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Hi, Tiny. Datsun 1600, car that's had 9 lives, bought new by just about everyone.
100 lives.
Yeah, 100 lives.
100 lives, yes. First car, second car, runabout, auto, it was very popular. Then it became a competition car, so anything that was standing was modified.
Yeah.
Modified,
yeah.
Yep.
And actually had a successful rally career. Now, it's going through another phase.
It is
What's
indeed.
happening?
Well, at the moment, the market is looking strong for good second-hand, reliable cars, ones that haven't been modified, Australian built and delivered cars. Are going to hold a premium over the JDM market. And yeah, they are very few on the ground at the moment. But you go to some of these big cruise nights around the place and you see that there are a few of them coming through into the cruise nights and getting a good reception when they do.
So it's not just the nostalgia market, the people who owned them originally saying, I've got to have another one. It's actually a younger buyer group coming through?
Very much so, the younger buyer group coming through.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's great for future values, isn't it? Because it appeals to such a broad demographic, young, middle-aged, old, whatever. It's just going to remain popular.
Yes.
And the big question, some of them have got a little bit rusty, mainly because they're being driven so hard and the body's fatigued and rust's got in it. There's the imported cars that came out here first, 68, 69. The later cars that are assembled here in the 70s. restoring them. Not easy always, because you can't get the trim. So where do you draw the line on this?
Well, you need to draw the line with the amount of money you're going to spend on a car.
Yeah.
I mean, there are still some good quality second-hand cars out there that haven't been flogged to bits,
Yes.
that haven't been raced, owned by older owners that have had them for many, many years.
Yes.
They're the ones you're trying to buy. You don't want to buy one that's been modified and raced mostly on dirt roads.
So the prices are not there yet to pay for a full restoration. That's what you're
No,
saying.
I wouldn't think so. No.
But that would be probably one of the biggest difficulties for someone wanting to buy one of these cars, is finding that body shell that hasn't been stressed, because so many of these cars were raced and rallied.
That's very true, but there would be some out there. There'd be some sleepers in people's garages that, unfortunately, the original owners are getting older and they need to sell the car. They're downsizing. They're the ones to try to find and try to seek out.
And if you grab that car, keep it in the original shape.
Keep it original as you can.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very good advice. Thanks, Tiny.
No problems.
And keep in mind, you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons auctions news on the Shannons Club website.
If you'd like a lasting memory of any competition cars featured on the show, you'll find them all at autopics.com.au.
Joe, looking back at the Datsun 1600 in that late 1960s context, you'd have to say that it caught the Australian automotive industry napping.
Well, in 1968, Holden, in their wisdom, thought they'd pull everything out of their cars, charge you for it, and then charge you to put everything back in.
And that was the HK.
Yeah, which was the same old Holden Billy car,
Yeah.
really. Then the Datsun 1600 came along, mechanically sophisticated, cheap, ready to go, everything you'd want in it. The contrast was just unbelievable. And I had the opportunity to ride in both cars
Yeah, well,
in 1968 when they were brand new. And I remember riding in the Holden thinking, yeah, it's bigger, but it's still crude.
Yeah.
Got into the Datsun 1600. That 96 brake horsepower, it was a little inflated, but boy, it had lots of performance.
Well, great power to weight ratio.
Great power to weight ratio, no matter what it had there, really. Great pulling power. Really, it just towed like there was no tomorrow. It just rode over any surface, and it was incomparable. You just didn't come across a car like this at that price. And I think at the time, Australians in general were in such shock. Oh, it had to be a copy of a BMW.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. They missed the fact that the Japanese industry were here now.
I think it would be fair to say, when you say Australians, also the motoring media at the time missed that important point.
Well, they kept on referring, oh, this must be a BMW copy. Well, sorry, it wasn't. It had nothing to do with BMW. They got there all on their own, and it was just, I think at the end there was a lot of denial going on, oh, this can't be true, and of course what happened afterwards just reinforced it.
Well, that would have been very, very scary if they had to realise the Japanese really did do a car this good on their own. Look out.
Well, I think what comforted us after the war is that we were technically superior or something like that. Datsun 1600 dispelled that myth straight off. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed this glimpse at the looming Japanese small car invasion, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.